Sorry, I sidetracked just to get. I'm sorry. All right, let's tackle the issues of the day, shall we, Tony?
Let's go. All
right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to an edition of the Halcyon show that I have no idea how it's going to go, but judging by the conversation I've just had off camera, I have hope. So let's introduce the man first. You're familiar with him already. If you're not, he is a man synonymous with and a cornerstone of the battle rap scene in both freestyle and written eras. He is also a musician, podcaster, an actor, a writer. He's performed across the world for numerous promotions. He has also led an immensely successful career as an activist, as an educator, and he still continues to this day to strive to become the very best at what he does, and that is why I've invited him on the show today to talk about, and I say this kind of jokingly, but kind of not, the issues of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Tony D.
Hey, how we doing? Bro, that as an introduction, there were so many points where I was like, is that me? Like, is he got another guest he's gonna come on right now? Like that was amazing, bro. I forgot I was an actor. I've been in 2 whole films. Forgot about that, man. Amazing.
We could run through your rap. I mean, I can pull it up if you like. We can run through some of this stuff just to be on the safe side. But your accolades and your career are one thing. However, the main reason I wanted to, and I've done the yes movement already off camera, is because you, on social media and in our discussions together, have expressed a lot of the kind of perspective and wisdom that I think are really important when it comes to tackling some of the things that I think a lot of people struggle with, or they struggle to articulate how they're feeling, and they struggle to agree on what to do. And having followed some of your feeds, I thought what we would do is we'd try and discuss some of this stuff, hash it out, send it to number 10, claim our royalties later.
Yeah, I like that.
So here's how I'll frame the first phase of this conversation, which is Tony D, what are the problems? What are we struggling with at the moment? Or what do you see as being some of the challenges and issues that face people at the moment?
Oof. Wow, that's a loaded question, bro.
It's a big one and it's a complex one. That's like, why it's gonna take some navigation, but I trust you to see through to the truth of the issue.
Okay, all right. So I'll tell you how I'll do that. I'll first start locally, and then get wider and wider.
Perfect.
So individually at the moment, people are not doing well. People are just not doing well, right? We have a cost of living crisis, which is engineered because poverty is a political choice. Let's not make any bones about it. Let's not try to fancy it up, or like poverty is a political choice. It is a decision made by a series of people who are not poor to make a bunch of other people poor. So just within my local vicinity, let's say the school where I work, I see children who only eat at school. That's where they get their meals. There is not enough food for them at home. And the thing about that is, we expect these kids to concentrate. We expect them to sit and be able to learn while they're worried that their parents haven't ate either. So, I mean, they got lunch at school today, but they got to think, well, but my dad didn't eat last night. He didn't eat when he got home from work. You know, he might not eat tonight. So we've got poverty. And that extends to like schooling, school clothes, school uniforms. I see the children. We do this terrible thing where we have our own clothes day in my school, and they pick a color. Sometimes, like St. Patrick's Day, they pick green. I'm thinking on Cathode, they pick purple. And you're supposed to bring in money. to wear your own clothes, and this money gets put in a collection, and it helps to do all these different charities and stuff. And I look around each time it happens, and I'm like, sometimes you see kids. First of all, you've picked a specific color. Do you think color is a factor when this child is picking clothes? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, he's going to bargain bins and to like Oxfam and things like that to get secondhand clothes. He's not worried about color. He's worried about something that's going to fit him, right? So we have situations like that. We have extreme poverty, and it's getting worse. And it's across all sectors, man. It doesn't matter what kind of job you're in. The doctors are on strike right now. The teachers was on strike last month. So yeah, just in my little area, I see the impact directly. I work with the children every day that are impacted by these issues. And then, like, let's go citywide, London-wide. London is better off than anywhere else in the country. So God knows what it's like if you live in a little town just near Middlesbrough, and you're unemployed, and you've got to go to food banks and whatnot. So that's just, and so it goes from like my little area to my city, my surrounding city, to the entire country. Everybody is struggling. And the thing I can't stress enough is that it's a choice. It's a choice to make people struggle. And what the people we have in charge are very good at doing is convincing you that the reason you're struggling is because of either A, that person who's in the same position as you, or B, even weirder, the person who's in a worse position than you, who has no power, who has no leverage. And we punch down all the time.
I completely agree. I'll just add something to that, because I feel it's important to add some. So in preparation for this conversation, I brought receipts because I knew we'd agree on a lot of this stuff. If you go to the BBC website right now, the cost of living crisis page has the tagline, "Tackling it together." And there are numerous articles, all of which center around the premise that you, yes, you're responsible for getting yourself out of this. Do you want to know how? Ask for a pay rise, despite inflation, of course. But you know, would it, every economist in the world telling everyone to not ask for a pay rise because it actually adds to inflation. Forget that. Ask for a pay rise anyway. Just perpetuate the problem. Stop asking questions. Secondly, what to do if I can't afford to pay my debts? Not food, not bills, debts, income tax, and how much will I have to pay? Who can get the next cost of living payments, your guide to saving money, and how to crack Easter on a budget. Now, I'm sorry. All of that, again, seems to place the blame of this crisis on you. You at home. Every single one of you at home, you're responsible for this, and only you can get yourself out of it. And the idea of it being a political choice is fascinating, the way you phrase that, because, again, I couldn't agree more, but I just felt like I needed to interject by adding that in, because what you've articulated there is exactly it. It's a narrative being peddled by people who are profiting like never before. Yes.
I think that's the bit that I think, and somehow people are missing it, is that we're more affluent. I say we. People are richer now than at any other period in human history. Like, we have people that are going to be trillionaires. That's what they're aiming towards. They're already multi-billionaires, and they're aiming to be trillionaires. And no one has ever had that much wealth. No one, like, in the history of humanity. But it's a thing of, they'll tell you, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And like, you're talking to people who don't have boots.
Yeah, the famous Martin Luther King quote. They're asking us to pull ourselves by our bootstraps, but you never looked to see we don't have boots.
Yeah, we're not wearing boots, man. And something that's really, I used this, I had a conversation last week. You might know, do you know how long 1,000,000 seconds is?
1,000,000 seconds, isn't it? Oh gosh, I have heard this, but I can't remember it off the top of my head.
So a million seconds is about 11 days.
Right.
Right? A billion seconds. So a million seconds is about 11 days. How much do you think a billion seconds is going to be?
My maths is failing me.
Yeah. So, but anyway, it's about 32 years.
I nagged. I was going to say 30 odd years. Damn.
Right. So, but that tells you there. You see the difference in a millionaire and a billionaire.
Yep.
Right. If a million seconds is about 11 days, a billion seconds is 32 years. A trillion seconds is 33,000 years. Right? When you start, instead of just making that seconds, you make that money. You put that in terms of pounds and stuff like that. And you've got companies who are making 700 billion pounds worth of profit last year. I was just, funnily enough, as I was queuing, because I went to Legoland today, as we discussed, as I was queuing up, I was scrolling through, doom scrolling as you do. And I think a supermarket chain had made something like 700 million and had largely invested it by doing stock buybacks and paying off shareholders. It didn't go back into the people who earned the money for them.
Right, 100%.
Which is, so the people who actually make that wealth happen, who stock the shelves, who scan the items, who go and put your trolleys back, the people who make it so that you can go to Sainsbury's and throw stuff in your thing and go through and leave. Those people did not get a pay rise. What they did was they used that money for stock buyback, which means they earn more money because now they own more stocks in their company. And I think I think it was like 1983, in the very early 80s, the CEO, I think, of British Gas earned something like 12 times that of his lowest paid worker. It might even be 20. It's something like that anyway. Now, the CEOs of certain companies are earning like 3,000 times what the lowest paid worker at their company does. And so when I say it's a political choice, it's made this way because you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to exploit. Like, for instance, if me and you don't pay tax, we get fined and we can go to prison. If you can afford to pay a lawyer to exploit a loophole, because tax avoidance is not the same as tax evasion. Tax evasion, you go to jail. Tax avoidance, they're like, damn, how did you manage to do that? Could you explain that to us, lot? And it's a whole different, like, it's a club we're not a part of. We are just not a part of it. And I think what we're really struggling with at the moment is, one, we are so broke and we are so angry. And we're looking in all the wrong places to vent our ire. Like we're looking at women, gay people, trans people, black people. We are anywhere we can. It's the Muslims. No, it's the Christians. It's anything you can put. It's the Jews. Good Lord, it's the Jews. Like anywhere. Other than who's running the country. Our current prime minister is worth 750 million. Is that right?
I think his personal wealth of 400 million, but his portfolio is probably worth several times that.
Okay, so prime minister pays 80 grand a year, 84,000 pounds a year.
Right.
Why has he got that job?
So that's a fascinating aspect, isn't it, of MPs that, again, the education aspect, we discussed off air. One of the things that we think is a failing is education, people's lacking of understanding about the basics. An argument I often hear about MPs, for instance, is you should make them do it for free, because you should abolish the need to, you should make them like political monks, as it were. They should be aspire to be pure as pure. You know that MPs originally didn't earn a wage. MPs were exclusively the landed gentry. People couldn't afford to be MPs, so they were given a salary. So you could have common people represent common people. The House of Lords is there where the landed gentry moved in, and the MPs and the House of Commons, as the name denotes, is for the common people. Now, over time that's skewed. And like you say, the class and the disparity between what people, the illusion of what people should be aspiring to or should have versus what they actually have. The mean salary is a great example of that. Yeah, the mean salary across the country is 37, 38, 39,000 pounds. Except that's not the most common salary. The most common salary is about 10 grand less than that. Now, how many people have to create that 10 grand disparity for the minority of people who earn inordinate sums of money to make up the difference? I'll tell you how many it is. It's the majority of people, but they're fed a narrative that no, you're just not doing as well as everyone else is. Everyone else is doing 37, 38, 39. If you're not, that's your fault.
Yep. And in this country, we don't discuss wages.
We don't discuss wages. No, I remember I bet you've been told off for discussing. Tony, right. I heard you discussing with so-and-so your pay slip the other day. It's company policy that you're not allowed to do that. Yeah, but it's also the law. I'm allowed to disclose whatever I want to disclose. So,
yeah. But they trick you with it, because then you find out, hold on, we're doing the same job and you're getting paid 2 grand more than I am. You know? And as soon as that happens, well, I want my money.
Yep.
I want, you know, and it's just those things there. Like, we're encouraged not to, it's as a culture, and English culture is very heavily weighed in favor of your betters.
Yep.
You know, like as you said, the landed gentry, you know, so the people had to work the land for them. They owned the land. If you want to live there, you toil it, right? So you dig, you do whatever it is, you work in my factory, you do whatever, but essentially own it. And all we've done is we've just shifted it into employer and employee. But we have a lot of culture, especially workplace culture, that's just kind of handed down from that place. So of course we wouldn't don't discuss that. It's uncouth. Yeah, we don't do such things. And then when you really work out why, it's because the discrepancies, and we can work out raw. We need to get more. We should be being paid more. That guy over there is earning way more than us, and we're doing half his job for him. Like, we should be being paid more, but we don't have that, and we just don't. It's changing. It is changing. I'll tell you one thing that really gives me hope. Well, on one hand, is that, like, the youth. These kids have grown up at a time in a completely different world. I mean, I grew up at a time with more TV channels than my mum had, but I still only had 4 TV channels. Right, up until Channel 5 came in the 90s, and then cable and Sky, and you know what I mean? But as far as your basic stuff, these kids now don't even watch TV. My kids don't have a favorite TV show or a favorite TV channel. They have a YouTube channel who's their favorite, or a TikToker who's their favorite, and that's who they watch. But these kids are growing up with so much information at their fingertips.
Right.
Where we would have had to go and look, like my godparents used to have a set of encyclopedias, yeah, on the bookshelf, A through to Z. And if you wanted to find something out, that's where my godfather would send you, man. Right. Go and look in the book. I'll tell you where to look. I'll give you what letter, and then you go and find it, right? No one's got to do that anymore. And that was just what was ever limited within those books. You've got the entirety of human knowledge just in here. It's just in your phone. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's everything we've ever done can be obtained on like that. So these children are far more aware than their parents are. They're far more aware than my generation. Even they just know so much because there's so much information coming to them. So they are, I guess, for want of a better word, you could call them woke. I don't like that word because it's using
connotations of it, but the guy in America who tried to battle against wokeism once submitted to a court a definition of wokeism, and it effectively amounted to something of an acknowledgement there are discrepancies and disparities in the way that laws are designed effectively against people, minorities and people who can be discriminated against. And someone went, so you're admitting you're against that?
Yeah.
Okay, odd thing to say I'm against, but you go right ahead. But anyway, sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, and he hasn't changed his opinion though. He's still Florida's where what goes to that. He still churns it out, man.
He's doing his thing. But let the Americans figure that shit out. Over here, as you were saying, kids, again, engaging with social activism and engaging with their self-worth in ways that their parents didn't. Yeah.
In so many different ways. And I think, and what they're also seeing, that I think generations saw, but never really didn't internalize it and realize what it meant. In as that much as we were told, if you work hard, you'll succeed. They're watching their parents work hard. They're watching their parents work 2 jobs in some instances, 3 jobs, and they're still hungry, or they still don't have the right clothes, or they still everything is not going smooth, and their parents is working harder than the prime minister for sure. You know what I mean? So they have this social awareness. They have this streak of activism within them, and it's a sight to behold, man. It's a beautiful thing to see. Like, it's genuinely a beautiful thing to see. But on the flip side, what we was talking about earlier about people not knowing the basics, they have so much information at their fingertips. They miss a lot of the basics.
Right.
They have so much stuff. They don't know where it comes from. They don't know they don't know how to respond to it. They don't know. They've got no idea. It's just constantly being bombarded. And because we don't teach critical thinking, like critical thought is not. You got to go to uni for people to before you learn how to take 2 opposing ideas and not be swayed by either one of them. But just to, what are the pros and cons of both of these things? We need to start doing that from primary school age, man. From 5, 6, 7 years old, getting them used to weighing information, getting them used to hearing, and getting them, like, also being able to disagree with something, even if somebody says, well, this is a truth, this is a universal truth. If your personal experience is like, well, is it? Because I don't find that's true. Then you've got to weigh it up, and to be able to do, you've got to teach people. It's a skill. It's a real skill to be able to do it. And you was talking earlier, off camera, about the teacher who he taught you something, man. He just by go and look at that word, and he knew what he was doing. But when he did it, you found out something that you still remember to this day. And you know why? Because it didn't just teach you the meaning of that word and that person wasn't real. It taught you about that teacher. It taught you how to approach conversation and debate. It taught you how to find information for yourself. It taught you so many different things that the lesson stayed with you to your adult life as a grown man. We just had a discussion about it. So we do need to start explaining to these kids, because there is so much information, because there is so many things going on, and because you've got, like, there is still rampant homophobia and transphobia, and believe it or not, racism. Racism has reared its ugly head in a way recently that I thought we had long since got past and done away with. And they're seeing, well, part of society says these people are okay. There's nothing wrong. That's all right. You can be gay. You can be trans. You can do whatever. But then they go home, and then the person at home, the person who they live with, is saying, "No, that's wrong." And they don't have the skill to be able to say, "Okay, the difference between an opinion." And like, because you have people to say, well, I disagree with homosexuality. What do you mean you disagree with homosexuality? It's not something you can even that's not what this is. You know what I mean? Right. Like I don't know, is Coca-Cola a fizzy drink? We can agree on that, right? That's something that's you can look at and you can say, yeah, we can agree on that. But someone saying I disagree with homosexuality, bro, that's not how this works at all, bro. He's gonna be gay whether you agree or disagree. That's got no part of it whatsoever. So yeah, that kind of encapsulated a lot. But
no. Well, the racism thing is an interesting one because you're right. It's weird when it rears up. It creates a lot of very odd and often difficult conversations with people, because one of the things that I think people can't wrestle with and understand is that they are being racist about something without necessarily being a bad person at heart, but the views that they harbor and express are racist. And you try to explain it through the prism of, right, I understand you don't want to feel like a bad person. That in of itself is a good thing. But you have to understand and distinguish between something that you are saying and doing versus the intent of what you are doing, and reconcile the two things by being responsible, because it is freedom of speech is not freedom of consequence. And I really wish people would understand the difference between your freedom of speech being infringed upon or your freedom of speech being challenged. Because if you are prepared to express an opinion, you must be prepared to stand behind and justify it. If you can't, then maybe you should revise your opinion. The gollywogs argument that I see being raised on Twitter at the moment is one of the most profoundly stupid conversations I'm seeing, because it's like having the conversation about the Confederate flag in America. I'm sorry, I understand that this iconography means something to you. What you're failing to recognize is what it actually represents to a generation of people that have come before you, or a generation of people who this was designed expressly and purposely to disrespect, to cause harm, or to oppress. Now, that's a lot to unpack, and it's also a lot to put on someone's doorstep and say, you know, you by adorning this in your pub or by raising this on your flagpole, that's what you're doing, when that wasn't their intent. But it comes back to something else we were talking about off camera. The idea that people, at least at the moment, are very afraid or just unable to assume responsibility for the things that they should be doing before they do the thing that I see a lot of people do. Right, you're racist. Well, I'm ginger and I'm discriminated against as well, so we're the same. I'm going to have to put the pause on that one, my friend, because I see what you've done there. There's a lot I could say about it. So I don't want to... I think I've presented you enough there to say, right, as far as where we're going, as far as the information aspect of what you were discussing there, the fact that there are people who are just not educated, or they just are not willing to amend their perspectives based on new information, a new perspective. Like, I understand where you're coming from, but maybe think of it this way. The question then becomes, how did we get here? How have we arrived at this point, considering, like you said, there was a generation past that got their information from books, that had a general shared consensus, and at least, and we, again, off camera, you guys are so unlucky you weren't there. The pretense of we all follow the rules and we all look out for each other, even if that was a sweet fantasy, at least it was a fantasy that we all kind of carried, doesn't really exist anymore, or at least it doesn't exist in the same context. How did we get here?
See, strangely enough, for me, I think we've always been in the same. I've had humans just do the same things over and over again.
Right.
Follow someone on Twitter who he's got a book coming out, funnily enough. But what he does is he finds newspaper articles about, say, kids don't have respect anymore. And you'll find a newspaper article from 2022 breaking down why children don't have respect. Then you'll find one from the 90s. Then you'll find one from the 80s. Then you'll find one from the 60s. Then you'll find one from the 20s. And all the way down. And then there's that famous, I think it's attributed to Socrates, but it's not actually Socrates. But the youth are impetuous, but it's literally a 2,000-year-old quote. Yeah, that the youth of today have no respect. They have no manners for their elders. And I think humans, and because I love history, man. I love history. I love learning about stuff that's just went on in the past. And I think, humans just continually do the same things. Like we just do the same things. The only thing that rarely changes is the technology with which we do it.
Yeah, same thing under a different guise, as it were.
Yeah. So prior to the invention of the printing press, there would have been someone just telling lies. He was just, you know what I mean? Just the guy in your village who just told lies. He told tall stories and stuff like that.
Well, yeah,
and
the tale of the boy who cried wolf. It's a famous tale that's taught to kids. Yeah.
There you go. And it's gone through generation through generation,
Yeah.
just through word of mouth, long before we ever thought of putting stuff, you know what I mean? Boom, 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 putting out books and rare. But I think humans consistently just do the same thing over and over and over again. Like, it occurred to me the other day, and I said it flippantly in conversation with my friend, that what we do is we invent new technologies, and all we do is, can we fuck it or can we kill people with it? And that seems to be like the be all and end all of why we advance, why we move forward. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like the position that we're in now, and I say it, going back to the racism, we've got a lot of Ukrainian families who've come over and go to my school, because they're obviously a massive war in the Ukraine. But they've come over and they've brought a lot of racism with them. Right? And
okay.
So what happened just last term was they called these two children, called two black children, monkeys. Right? Now, that's a slur I ain't heard since I was a kid. I didn't know that people were still calling black people monkeys. I'd thought we'd elevated way, I thought you had a new derogatory term for us by now. But and then it just made me think, right, it is just the same old thing. It's the same thing over and over and over and over again. And the reason I say that is trans people pretty much always existed. Gay people have always existed. Wealthy people have always existed, and poor people have always existed.
Right.
And it's just different variations on the same thing. It's just continuous. I think now though, with social media, and because everything is geared towards it, like making money. So even the news, they try to draw you in with like inflammatory stuff, scandal. Do you know what I mean? They try to get you, because if you look at them, then someone gets paid somewhere along the line, and this is how we all make money.
That's actually a very fascinating way of contextualizing that, by the way. I think you've hit on something really important there. The rich people being rich, for instance, right? What they're doing is not any different than any previous generation. They are just wildly successful at it.
Yes.
And that disparity isn't created by something new. It's created by a more, or perhaps the most successful version of what they have always done.
Yes.
I completely agree with that point.
It's it's the same thing over and over again. And now we have, like I said, billionaires. No one's had that much money prior to this.
The number of Elon Musk, 147 billion. I remember doing the calculations for the survey that someone did once, where it said something like, well, if you earn $75,000 a year, that's the salary for happiness. If you earn any more, it doesn't equate to much. If you earn less, you could earn more and be happier. Over a lifetime, I think that added up to about $5.7 million. Obviously, notwithstanding tax or the rest of it, right? And then you go, cool. How many lifetimes could Elon Musk live happily before he runs out of money? And you lose count, and you go,
it's ridiculous.
How much money is enough when there are people that cannot eat? How much money is enough before I can start to say, right, is it possible for you to pay tax now? On some of it, not even all of it. Like, keep your Tesla money and your fucking Twitter money if you need us, but pay tax on those flamethrowers. I feel like you're not making a lot of money on them, so you can pay the tax on them and at least feel good about it. You know what I mean?
His Tesla is government subsidized, man.
This is the thing. The thing that pisses me off and I get really mad about this shit when I look at the whataboutism argument for the benefit of people at home and for you, because I didn't tell you, was I'm mad at people who are rich because the money they earn is hoarded. It does not it's not redistributed And it is not earned as a result of everybody being successful. It's earned as a result of a single individual triumphing at the top of a pyramid scheme. Poor people who, if you want to say, yeah, but what about the single mums that have got 10 kids and never feed them and smoke fags and all the rest of it? Right, cool. Even if that woman exists, how much money does she cost the country for a principle? Because the principle is that a benefit system exists as a safety net to make sure all of our citizens have a certain standard of living based on what we all unilaterally agree a good country should have. I'm not prepared to sacrifice that principle to get rid of a person that might hypothetically exist when there are people who I can point to and say, there's Elon Musk, or there's Richard Branson, or there's the Prime Minister. He does not contribute equivalent to even someone who is on the 10th of a percentage of what he earns. So why would I target people who, even if they exist, are utilizing a system we all agree should be there, instead of someone who is abusing a system that we all probably agree shouldn't be there? And that's where I come off this, the whataboutism argument of, but there's poor people sponging off the system. Even if they are, how much is that? Is it 300 million? Is it a billion? Is it 10 billion? BP gets subsidized billions a year just to trade in this country. We pay them to work here to earn 36 million pounds a minute in pure profit. Explain to me how that can be legal. But the idea of the social media age being an excellent point, because it is a distraction. It's mine and your generation, perhaps. Our parents faced the same problems under different guises. They also had limited networks or information streams versus our open networks. We're more susceptible to misinformation than they were because trust was a commodity. Whereas now it's whoever you like the most is who you trust the most. But I would say that one of the things you've illustrated is critical thinking. How can we address that disparity? Because I don't think it's young people, because young people I think you can teach it to and they'll see the merit in it going forward. Anyone who is of adult age, who is in a position to contribute to society and does not critically think about this stuff, how can we address that, do you think? Is there a way of addressing that?
I don't, man, $1 million question. I don't know, because I often, I don't really like the term left and right wing.
No, me neither.
I don't like, because I kind of feel like there's certain things I feel conservative about, you know what I mean? And there's certain things I'm more liberal towards, you know what I mean? But there are there's a mindset among certain people that, and it is to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It is, I did this, I did it by myself, and I don't know how you convince those people that they didn't really do it on their own. And
right.
Because, like, just for instance, let's take Jeff Bezos at Amazon, right? Now, we all take advantage of Amazon. I even know his name's Ahmed, the guy who comes to my door that frequently. But he's not, Jeff Bezos is not in a warehouse right now, looking at his phone, taking an order, packaging it, putting local sauce in it, packaging it, and shipping it off to you. He's not doing that. There are people, millions of other people doing that process for him. Therefore, his company cannot make money without those people. And what we tend to flippantly say is, well, that's unskilled labor. Anyone can do that job, so it doesn't really matter. No, because anyone's not doing it. Dave's doing it. John's doing it. Susan's doing it. Yeah, they've got families to support. They've got people who rely on them, and they are working 40 hours a week. If you work 40 hours a week, there is no way you should not be able to afford a house to live in, a vehicle to drive, and a holiday every year. Because it was possible in the 70s, the 80s, post-war, where you could have one wage, and one wage would support your entire family. Your wife wouldn't have to go out to work necessarily. And I'm not saying it wasn't across the board for everybody, but there were far more examples of it than there are now. And like, so you've got Jeff Bezos, and people say, well, it's his money, he's earning it. No, he's making it. He's not earning it, he's making it. There's a big difference between making money and earning money. Yeah, drug dealers make money. Yeah, they make money. See, street sweepers, they earn money. See, people who dig out your sewer, he earns his money. Yeah. But the people who are like at the bottom, who are making these companies run, the people who work for BP, who sit behind, who swipe your card when you go and pay for petrol, these people are not seeing the benefits that the higher ups are seeing.
Right? To illustrate the point, because you're right, the doctor, the junior doctors debate that's raging at the moment. Okay, so I have a retweet from yourself because I thought it was particularly pertinent. Sir Keith Starmer, fucking, he sounds like a guy you grab a pint with. Agrees the pay demand for junior doctors is too much, but says the government must get round the table. Okay, I don't think 35% is affordable. Okay, we'll forget the fact that the 35% figure is to redress the discrepancy between what they are paid. Right. So 35% isn't affordable for doctors who, I think, I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of people here. I'd say we need doctors. I plan on living for a while. I'm occasionally going to get hurt. I might want to have someone take a look at it who's not fucking going to shake some celery sauce over it and call it a day. You know what I mean? Like, I want someone who's a trained professional who I can trust can go home at night having not been taxed 30% of his wage, plus another 10% for his student loan, plus whatever it costs to park at the fucking hospital he works at. He himself, sir, by the way, sir, for fuck's sake, sir. Definitely, a member of the common man. When you
the leader of the Labour Party is called Sir.
Yeah, there's a branding issue there, isn't it? Sorry, the use of the word "in it" wasn't meant to be ironic, but Anyways, he and other MPs would have experienced an increase of 42.7% in that same time.
Yes.
Now, factor in the fact that, forget the percentage discrepancy of whatever that is, 7.5%, 7.7%. MPs earn significantly more than doctors. So 7.7% compounded over 8 years, since 2008, because it's not just 7.7% skipped. It's right. Year 1, it was 1.2%. Year 2, it's 2%. Year 3, it's 3%. That compounds over time. You want to tell me that's fair and reasonable when anyone with a brain can understand the distinction between someone who is wealthy protecting what they want to earn while demanding that people asking for the same thing. I don't want more than I think I'm worth. I just want what I think I'm worth. Well, what you have to understand is we are in a cost of living crisis right now. Yes. We have to deal with this together, you see. And in order for us to all deal with it together, we'd really love it if you didn't have a 35% pay rise. But pay tax on everything and pay the increased amount on everything and still feed your families. That house you want to buy, have you got a partner who's on a commensurate amount of money with no debt? No? Well, then what the fuck are you doing in here for? Yeah. Go and rent. Well, right, but anyway, the house of cards falls from there in terms of the argument. And the argument is, we're in this together. You need to understand what you're doing for everybody else, but don't scrutinize what I'm doing too closely.
Don't look at that.
How can we, when that is someone who wants to lead us? How can you resolve? So I guess what I'm saying with that is there a way of redressing that balance at least? If you can't, because the critical thinking, I understand completely. That's probably a generational thing. The next generation will be better at it, hopefully, and after and after. But as far as people now doing the basics of holding people accountable, how do we go about that, do you think? Or how would you like to see people go about that?
Burn it down.
Burn it down!
Like, honestly, France, for instance, they're on strike.
Yes.
France is on strike, right? And they're in solidarity with one another. Different organizations, different jobs. They're like, oh yeah, we support you fully. The people support them. They've gone out on the. Do you see the protests? Like massive protests. English people, as I said earlier, there's certain cultural norms. In as much as you don't talk about your wage. Yeah, we don't discuss wages. And another thing is, like, you grin and bear it. The stiff upper
authority, yeah.
Yeah, that stiff upper lip. No matter how much you suffer, English, innit?
We carry on.
You swallow it down with the back of a spoon and you keep going, right? And that's a mentality that has to change, because it's something. And you see it frequently. And then, funnily enough, this was actually the point I was making earlier about social media. And everything is always in your face. Like, you can, back in the day, you turn off the telly, there's no one there in your house doing this. But now you just got a phone with you all the time, at all times during the day. You might just scrolling through, and it's constantly there. You're constantly bombarded with it. And I think that, like, there's a mentality of people in this country, and I see it prevalent on social media, where they're like, we could all do really well if we all moved in the same direction.
Right.
But I don't think you deserve to do well. So if being that's the case, I'll suffer as long as you suffer more. Like, there's a way I thought of it before, like I think I tweeted it once as well. Like, the mentality in this country is that it's okay for your superior to come and punch you in the face every day, as long as when he does it, when you turn to the left, he's kicking someone else in the bollocks. Like, that, it's that mentality. It's like, I will put up with this suffering as long as I get to those people I don't like, they'll suffer more. And I don't know how you change that. I don't know. I don't know what you appeal to. I don't know, because that's you lack humanity. You lack basic empathy. So what do I appeal to? Because I'm trying to appeal to you as a human, because it's the only way I know how. If you don't see the humanity in your fellow man, like, when you, like, just me and you looking at each other right now, bro, we are damn near mirror images. We've got 2 arms, 2 legs, a head. It's the minor details that are different. I've got slightly more melanin. Your hair grows different to mine. Do you know, like, those are the minor things. The real thing, the fact of the matter is, you got a head, a torso, 2 arms, and 2 legs. Do you know what I mean? You like, of course, you're just like me, man. Just like me. You go through the same things I'm going. You experience the highs and the lows that I do. We all do it. And if we were all pulling in the same direction and all trying to, like, damn, I'm struggling today, right? Make a phone call, your brethren's like, damn, yeah, come round, man, we'll have a chat, boom, 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 boom. And we do this for one another. But we need to do it on a massive scale, and just get over this. I think the feeling of the need to feel superior. I think a lot of people have a need to, and don't get me wrong, the reason I think a lot of people have it is because there's the part of me that has it. I'm a battle rapper. Like, if you think ever in life, I don't think I'm the best battle rapper in the world. Bro, I'm the best to walk the
He really is, though. He really is. He really is.
But, like, that's my mentality. Do you know what I mean? But then there are scenarios and circumstances where I get to exhibit that. I get to put that out there. So I get into a ring and I just tell someone else I'm better than you. Yeah. Other people don't have the same outlet for that need to feel superior. So it comes out in a malicious or vindictive way, and it comes out in a like, no, I don't want you to have that. It's why people will say, well, oh, they're buying fags, they've got a flat screen TV, and you're like, right, so because people are poor, they shouldn't have enjoyment in their lives. It's like that's where you're at in your level of thinking. That if someone doesn't have a certain amount of money, they don't deserve to have any titillation, any entertainment, any distraction from the mundane and the grinding brutality of their everyday life. Because let me tell you, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. And not just that, yeah. One day Jack's gonna come and snatch everything that you've got. Yeah, he might even take your life whilst he's doing it. And all now Jack's in jail, you dead, and you ain't even got the thing to lord it over him no more. It's gone. These things are not real. They are not real. Humanity is real, bro. Like,
very good.
That's
very
real,
very
man.
well put. Because and here's how I say we resolve it, and I'm going to put it to you so you can pick it apart, because I'm sure I'm being fanciful. So I have a theory that at some stage when I was younger, the narrative used to be, if you want to change things, you got to disengage to show that the machine stops. The famous speech that was given, I think it was in the 40s or the 50s, where it's, you've got to throw your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels and upon the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. Okay, that was then. In the time since, powerful people have learnt to harness the way that the system does not work for their benefit. As a matter of fact, it's a popular political play to stifle or hinder the system, and then point to it not working as evidence of their requirement. You need me because look at how broken the system is.
Yeah.
Do you want to know how I know? Because I broke it.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, okay, right. Disengaging does not work. So now what are the options? The option is to continue to disengage and to still not have a hand on the wheel and steer our own destiny. The other option is to engage. You talk about there the idea of remembering the humanity of the situation. In my work, one of the things I like to do is I like to take the youngsters under my wing and give them advice. And one of the pieces of advice I give them is to care. Care about what you're doing, but also care about the person you're speaking to. Remember that in any given situation, if the person, and I've been threatened with desert eagles in my job, I've been threatened with all sorts of shit in my jobs. It's not personal though, and you have to remember that the person that said that has probably got something else going on that isn't anything to do with you. But bear that in mind, because when you engage with the person on what they are and who they are, it's possible to steer them back towards where they should have been the whole time. A good way to continue to piss someone off, and I've had this done to me, and I'm sure you've had this done to you, I'm sure everyone else has had this done to you, because this is the times we live in. Tony, let's say you've got a problem with your bill, okay? You get a bill through your post, you call me, and you say, I've got a problem with this bill. It says it's ridiculous. And in some variation, I tell you that I can't do anything about it, and I'm not going to do anything about it. But of course, I've got to remember that I'm a customer relations agent or a customer care advisor or whatever the fuck name they want to call it these days. So I end my sentence with the phrase, is that okay? The fuck do you mean, is that okay? What are you human? I've called you for help. You've told me you can't or won't, and now you're asking me for permission to feel okay about it. Now, that is as clear an example of someone forgetting the humanity of the situation as I've ever seen. Whereas when I give people this advice, it's always under the guise of, look, of course you stand to gain something by doing this. You're getting their cooperation, and then the sale or the information that you're after, or whatever it is that the purpose of the call was for, okay? But perhaps more importantly, the person on the end of the phone gets something, which is they've been heard and they have been dealt with as an adult and as a human being. Now, I don't know though, because I've taken quite a long time to explain that, and my anecdote might not work for other people in different guises. But I'm of the firm belief that and I mean everyone, has to engage at this point. It has to be a concerted and a prolonged effort on everyone's part to hone in on this shit and say, that is not acceptable. We the people, we might disagree on everything else, but this one thing, we don't agree with it. And I guess my question is it possible in an age that we are where there are distractions and it's so easy to just, do you know what, like you say, I'll just carry on, man. Like, that seems like a lot of effort, and I don't think anyone else is going to do it anyway, so what is the point in me putting my neck out? You know, how do you have that hand in hand marching across the bridge moment? How do you have that in this day and age?
That's a tough one. That's tough for a multitude of reasons. For instance, like, intersectionality is a massive thing. Right? So we have a prime minister who is obscenely rich, obscenely wealthy. He's of a particular class, but he's also of a particular race. There are people who will not like him because of his class. There are people who will not like him because of his race. And those two people will never find common ground. I haven't seen it. And I don't know how you make them see it. So in order to get everybody on the same page, and this is what I said earlier, if we all win, we all win. Like, if we all win, then we all win. No one gets left behind, not one of us, not one. But what you have is people who, with various insecurities, or various ego problems, that will say, okay, well, I don't want us all to win. I want to win.
Or I want to burn it to the ground and watch all of you burn with it. If I can't be at the top of the pyramid, there ain't going to be a pyramid.
Yeah, and I honestly, I don't know how. I say I don't know. I think I do know how to change that, but I don't think it's practical.
What is it?
It's a re-education and a reframing of everything that we do. Like, so I teach, in my job, I teach emotional literacy. In having to learn that, you learn a bunch of stuff. You have to do the research, you got to do the reading and all the whatever. And there's a thing that says, if you want your child to be smart, hug them when they're small, right? You cuddle your baby a lot, you will have an intelligent child. And it sounds like that doesn't even make sense until they explain that, okay, so when a child is held and he's hugged, he feels secure. If a child is secure, he has the capacity to learn because he's safe. If a child feels insecure and unsafe, they are too worried about survival to learn appropriately, to learn adequately, because they're just trying to remain safe. Their entire existence is to navigate their way through each day and just stay safe. And I'm talking about children, I'm talking about babies. Yeah, because as bad as it is, very young children experience awful abuses at the hands of adults. So you've got young children who are just, their day-to-day is trying to survive. Now, what that does to them as adults the therapy will be expensive, sir. Like that's gonna cost a lot of money to unpack. And there are certain things that even if you unpack them, like you're not gonna be able to like rectify them. Like another example is children who may have been in a domestic violence situation whilst in the womb are born with heightened levels of cortisol, because the fight or flight from their mum is always on the go. So when that's what she puts out is going into them, right? So when they're born, they are born with elevated stress levels that never drop. They just remain high. Those people will be nervous and on edge for unless they really go through some deep, do you know what I mean? Some deep psychological, like some therapy, some really working on stuff to try to not change it, but adapt to it. But yeah, their adult life will be affected by what's gone on before they were born, before they left the safety of their mother's womb. So what I say is it's a complete reset, because we need to change how we raise each other, man. How we treat each other in the womb, and then once you're out of the womb, and how we raise people up. And it becomes very difficult because I'm not a believer in physical punishment. I do not physically discipline my children. I refuse to do it, and I don't think anybody else should do it. But you have people who will tell you, well, it happened to me and I'm all right. Let me tell you, it happened to me, yeah? Happened to me. My mum was a physical disciplinarian. Yeah, she would hit you. My grandmother too. You know what I mean? But if you say, well, it didn't do me any harm, yet you're standing here formulating an argument for a reason that you should physically hit a small, frail human being, then I would say you did quite a lot of harm to you. I would say you're not okay, because you're now imagining inflicting violence on another person first and foremost. That's not the way to go. But on a tiny person, a small human being, and you think that's acceptable? And like for me, it comes down to like, if a child is old enough to reason with, then you reason with them. And if they're too young to reason with, then they don't understand why you're hitting them. So it's not like, that's my solution, is literally burn it down, scrap it, and we'll start again, and we'll start from a humane place. And if the thing is, I don't know if we've ever, in the history of humanity, if we've ever had that. We've been at war forever, man. This tribe war with that tribe, this country went to war with that country. We've had empires, we've had colonies. It still goes on today. So I don't know if humanity has ever been at that place. But what I do know is now we have lots of research. We have lots of information. They did a 50-year study into physical discipline. And the outcome was, if you physically discipline your children, what you teach them is that violence solves certain problems. And why that may be true in the society we live in, and in particular instances, the thing about it is that you don't get to tell them where those instances are acceptable. So you might visit violence upon your child and say, well, that's a thing, it's just normal, this is what we do. But then he grows up and he hits his missus. And now you're like, oh, well, I didn't mean to take it. Well, you made violence acceptable. You made violence acceptable. Like, so he found that was his acceptable method of controlling that situation. So like, yeah, I'm fully like, tear it down, and let's or at the very least, let's attempt to re-educate people in just kind of gentler, more humane ways. But we can't do that when everybody's starving. Everyone's trying to eat, and everyone's right. The hardest part of life is you're running around every day trying to make money. So there's no time for yourself, no time to even think to form. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I in this world? What do I do? How do I feel about certain things? You've got no time to contemplate it because you've got to go to work from 7:30 till 7:30. Then you've got to come home and quickly bathe and feed your kids. Then you've got to, maybe you go out on a night shift. Do you know what I mean? And do 3 hours then in a petrol station down the road. Then you come home at 1 a.m. and you go to sleep for 4 hours. Then you wake up and you go back to work again. When do you have time to actually look at yourself and take these things on board and say, well, where do I go as a human from here? Not where do I go as an employee? Not who am I as a renter? Not who am I as a left winger or right? Like, who am I as a human? And how do I relate to the other humans around me, man? So that, like, my whole thing is just, let's re-educate everybody. Let's attempt to anyway, man. Show them a better way. You got to be like, you got to be the change that you want to see, right? So
100%.
That's kind of like, I'll give you a good example. The girl in my year 5 class, she's really rude, really bad. She's so rude. And September, got into the class, boom, 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 and I honestly dislike this girl. And I was having this conversation with my friend and his wife. And I said, do you know what? I really dislike this girl. And as I said it out loud, because I'd thought it over and over again. But as I said it out loud, hold on. She's 10. I'm 44. And I don't like her. Let me change my approach. I changed my approach to her. Now, don't get me wrong. She's still rude to other people. We're working on that. But she's not rude to me. And we have a relationship. She comes to look for me, to ask me about things, to speak to me. She comes for advice. She's feeling low, feeling bad. She's feeling happy, you know? And she's one of my I do gate duty in the mornings, and I make a point of saying good morning and have a nice day to every single kid that walks in, because I know some of them, no one said that to them this morning. No one said good morning, or no one's told them just have a good day or do your best. No one said that to them. So every day I try, I do that. I have like year 5 and year 6 coming through my gate, so it's like 120 kids. But it's always the same ones that are late, and she's generally one of the late ones. And when I see her, late again, what was you messing about this morning? What was you doing this morning? And we'll have a little bit of banter before she has to go to class, because I know it just calms her. But it's one of those things where I realize, right, I hold this opinion, but I'm the person with all the power.
Right.
So what do I change about myself in order to make this work? And in changing that thing about myself, it's helped our relationship. And it's also, she is less rude. She's still very rude to other people, but she's less than she was. And it's because I continually keep telling her, like, the same thing that me and you do now, you can do that with the rest of them. You can if you want. Yeah, but some of them they're not ready. You've got to be the bigger person. Yeah, and then when you give a child that sense of responsibility, they thrive. They take that on, and they you know what I mean? They say, well, you know what? I can be the good person in a situation with an adult. I can be the bigger person, because it's not often that happens. And then it's those kind of things. It's just little bits. What are we doing? What do we do to help it? I know, like, conversations like this, I know you have these conversations everywhere you go. I know you have these conversations with lots of different people. So you are the change that you want to see. You are setting that example. You are doing that thing. That's all I can try to do. That's all we can already try to do, because there's no way of just starting again. We're far too far gone to just say, all right, stop. We're going to do it all this way now. But day by day, little by little, just feeding, trying to get people's egos down and their self-esteem up.
I agree. The only thing I would say is I took a lot from COVID, in that COVID highlighted to me a number of different aspects of humanity that I'd never contemplated in any deep way before. One of the things, well, I mean, I mean, in good and bad. I mean, look, we were
I
all
know
there
what
at the
one of them's
beginning
gonna be,
when,
man.
you couldn't buy loo roll, and if you did find antiseptic cream, it was on eBay for $1,000 a pot.
Yeah.
But that's the worst of humanity. But what I did see is the capacity for people to right. We all agree this is the thing to do to ensure we all survive. We don't know what's going on. We don't know how bad this is, right? But we all agree the people who are leading us are giving these instructions, and it is better for us all to follow them. And I feel that worked right up until the moment that narrative became a narrative. It wasn't a principle or a guiding goal. It became something people who were powerful said to keep the rest of us doing something while they did something else.
Yeah.
And it permeates from there. And I look at things like, again, the racism argument being one of something where I feel like if you can somehow identify what racism is, which is a method of control, subjugation, and exploitation, and understand that when you see people making comments from certain avenues and perspectives versus the people who are actively doing the damage. Again, the gollywog people are ill-advised. Andrew Edwards. Now,
Him?
right, I don't think there's any self-education or any book you're going to give that guy that's going to make him renege his opinion, because that is a person who is permeating racism as a means of oppression. Now, he can say it's a joke if he wants. My argument with humor has always been the same, and I explained this to a 6-year-old the other day. It's only funny if the person you're telling the joke to finds it funny, and someone you don't think is listening finds it funny. If you're telling a joke that you hope someone doesn't overhear you telling, there's a good to fair chance it's not a joke. It's either bullying, it's racist, homophobic, whatever combination you want to pick. But ultimately, it's a system of control. It's an imperative put forth by people in power to remain in power by a certain mean. Racism is one avenue. Homophobia is another. Transphobia is another. Class is a thing that is permeated. And it's that thing, like you said, I can hate the rich person, but then again, the rich person, he makes jobs. He represents success. He's at least doing something with his life. These bloody poor people, tell you what, they're the and it's like, hang on. Why is it too much to ask we all do pretty well, rather than rooting for the rich guy and condemning the poor person, when it's probable that disparity isn't an accident?
Mm-hmm.
That's a very intentional mechanism at play that I equate to the lottery, man. That's the way I look at capitalism. You and I, everybody else, has sold a lottery ticket. You could be the next Dwayne Johnson, the next Kim Kardashian, but you got to be in it to win it. And you go, cool, except for you're giving us all tickets, but you're also the ones picking the numbers. And I'm pretty sure you're not picking my numbers.
Yeah.
And so it becomes this thing of saying to people, right, how do you reconcile that? And mine's not quite burn it to the ground. Mine's you ditch the pyramid scheme and you turn it into a sphere scheme. There has to be the majority of the wealth in the middle section of the sphere, because then it can elevate upwards, but then it can filter back down to the bottom so that it can permeate outwards. So it raises people out of poverty into the middle class, where they're paying taxes and have a job, have aspirations that are rewarded. And the certain people that cause that success can elevate to the top. But the people that fall down are then carried by that system. The system we have now creates poverty. It takes people from the middle class and puts them to the lower class.
Yes.
And the people who have always been at the top class stay there.
Yes, indeed.
And if you want to, and we'll end on a couple of last little points. If you want to think of it in this way, how many generations of people do you think there have been in our history? Just generations of people. thousands,
Yeah,
tens of thousands of generations.
I'd say tens of thousands. And the reason I say that is because if you go back 100 generations, you can find a shared ancestor for everyone currently on the planet. And it's because it's not far. It's just 100 generations, but it's like 3,000 years. So if 100 generations is 3,000 years, how long we've been here?
20,000 years, 16,000 years, something like that.
Yeah, so in the tens of thousands, I'll say.
Tens of thousands. Okay, so enough time for even one member of your line to have a lineage and a hereditary something to pass down. Okay, now granted, I don't come from a wealthy background in the slightest, okay, but I'm proud of where I come from. However, in the time my family have been in existence, they've not generated enough wealth, accumulated enough property or enough of anything to pass down to me that I can afford to not work. Okay? That's after 10, 20, 30 generations. There are generations of people who have never known work and will never know work. Despite the fact we've all had the same amount of time. And you'd think that at some point everyone gets over the finishing line. Everybody gets to a point where, right, our family is now set from here on in. We have bought the house, we have paid for it, it now goes to my kids. They keep it until they want to sell it and buy something different, but that thing then goes down to their kids. I don't know of too many people who fit that criteria. I don't know many people who fit that criteria because the systems that are in place are designed to go, oh, cool, your nan left you a house. Great. Here's a problem, though. You're probably going to have to sell it. And when you sell it, we're going to take 50% because of inheritance. And, of course, there's sales taxes, paperwork. You wouldn't understand all that. Say it goes for 50%. And the money that you're left with isn't enough to do anything with. So you might as well spend it. Spend it on, hey, you've always wanted a Gucci suit. Buy a Gucci suit. Piss it away on something. Why not? And then suddenly the wealth that you're supposed to generate is dissipated.
Yeah, it's gone.
Because like you said, we exist in a class below the wealthiest people who can afford to go to a taxation office and go, there's a percentage on the end of this. Sorry, I don't think you understand. I'm rich. I don't pay tax. Oh, I'm terribly sorry, sir. Didn't understand. Let me just get rid of that. Sorry, it turns out we owe you money. Well, it's okay. We all make mistakes. Until you can resolve these systems of control to understand that we're all affected by them at some stage, while people who permeate them are happy to propel narratives that, do you know who's at fault? The foreigners. Coming over here, taking our jobs. Do you know who's at fault? Young people. It's their disrespect. Do you know who it is? It's the people who question their sexual orientation. They're the ones at fault. And you go, hang on. No. just no. It's far more complex than that. But I think, like, you kind of highlighted a lot of that stuff in terms of the education needs to be addressed 100%. People need to be free and encouraged to critically think. But we also have to understand and come face to face with the fact that maybe we have to address this. It has to go ground level with this. In the same way that I think you've got to go ground level with a lot of the racism arguments, you've got to go ground level with a lot of the discussion arguments about how people conduct their discourse in a helpful way, rather than just, I must destroy my opponent. I have to own my opponent. But the final point, give us something to hope for. You've lived a long, fruitful, successful, bountiful life with many, many years. You're probably not even halfway through, my friend.
Fingers crossed.
Give us some hope. What do you cling to as a semblance of, right, things might be bad, but...
For me personally, my babies, man, things might be bad, but my babies, I just got to look at them, man, and everything it just melts into place. But in terms of a hope, I think we're at a stage, again, we've never been here before. We've never been here, lived this way before. For hundreds, well, however many thousands of years, we were hunter-gatherers. Then we discovered agriculture. We invented agriculture. And then we had agriculture for another, like thousands of years. Then we had an industrial revolution, and it was 200 years ago, right? And like, so humans were accustomed to living a very particular way for ages. And in the last 200 years, it changes every day. Every single day, there's something new. You see like AI popping up now with the weird finger stuff.
Sorry. The weird finger stuff. There's a lot to unpack there. But yes, I understand what you're saying.
So what we are seeing, my good friend, my daughter's godfather, one of my closest friends in the world, is Iranian, born in Iran. He lives here, but he's Iranian. Like I know a lot of things about Iran because he's the internet, that you can see the people in Iran, the government of Iran can tell you this is happening, but the people of Iran can say, hey, look, this is what's happening, right? There's a war currently in the Ukraine. You could have Russia saying this is what's happening, but then you could have people on the ground saying, hey, this is actually what's happening, look, right? And as I said, these kids are growing up with so much information, but just so much more, like so much more more empathy, I think, more aware of other people's misfortune and other people, like the fact that everyone doesn't live like you. And so we're at a point where 99% of the world, 99% of the world are underneath 1%. 1% control everything. They are the richest. I think like the top 1% have the same amount of wealth as the bottom half of the entire world. So you're talking about 4 billion people have the same amount of money. It's like 170 or 200. Like it's not loads of people, you know. It's like a set of group of families. Do you know what I mean? It's a really small set of individuals. And they have as much wealth as 4 billion people. And I think with these things happening, they are more informed. They are, as you said earlier, they are more at risk of misinformation and disinformation. But they also just have all of that information at their fingertips. And they reach out and they speak and they connect. And I think as they grow and they really look at the unfairness of it, and they just look around us and they work out like it shouldn't be like, I mean, the global south is suffering so that we, like, I mean, I got like a 50-something inch TV over there. I got a PS5, I got a PS4, I got my phone next to me, I've got Skybox there. I'm on a laptop right now. There's 2 computer screens and like a home office over there. They're like, in order for me to have all these things, someone somewhere doesn't have that luck. They were not as fortunate to fall out of a woman's crutches into this. This is where I fell out, right? They don't have that. I heard a statistic, and I don't know. I wasn't sure if it was true, and then I started to weigh stuff up, and if you have a roof, electricity, and running water, you are in the top 1% of the planet, right? And I started to think about that, and I said, that cannot be right. It doesn't make sense. And then I thought, Flint, Michigan doesn't have clean water, and that's in the United States of America. So they've only got 2 of those things, and that's in America. So then I thought, how much people don't have electricity? My brother, one of my older brothers, he moved to Zambia, I'm gonna say Zambia, I'm probably wrong. He moved to an African country. And he came back to visit and was talking to me, and he was like, yeah, we have electricity for 2 days and we have water for 3 days. Then we have electricity for 2 days and then water for 2 days, right? But my brother's an electrician. So he came over here, bought solar panels, he went back, his whole village got electricity. Like that's what he did. His whole village now has electricity every day of the week, right? But it's that thing. So there are lots of places that do not have those three things in combination of a roof, running water, running clean water, and electricity, right? These kids, I don't think they'll stand for it. And I don't, maybe it won't even be them. Maybe it will be their kids or their grandkids. But if you like between the age of 5 and 10 right now, I think your children, your grandchildren are the ones that will save this world. I don't think I will be here to see it saved. I'm not convinced of that. But I do think it has to get better, because hatred, right? When you run things off of hatred. So here's a really good example. Brexit. Very controversial. Not everybody voted Brexit because they were racist, but all racist people voted for Brexit, right? And what happens now is they're looking around. What happens is, and I tell you, there's a few, forget Brexit, because I just had an idea. Ben Shapiro capes for white supremacy. Ben Shapiro is Jewish. If Ben Shapiro succeeds in caping for white supremacy to the point where, okay, every person of color is crushed underfoot, who do they go for next, Ben? You don't count. You are not the same as them. I tell you, there's a guy in this country, big afro, right winger. He's a priest or something now. What Calvin Robertson. Calvin something. He hangs around with Lawrence Fox. You can tell he's no good. But big massive afro. And he posted a picture of like this idyllic English village and what he wanted it to be like. And the very first comment underneath is, bro, you're not invited. And the first comment. And the thing is, that's who these people are. And I don't think they understand. When you spread messages of hate, what hate does is it shrinks. It shrinks your opportunities and it shrinks your possibilities. It shrinks the people around you. So first of all, you get rid of all, I don't know, let's take this country, let's take this. First of all, you get rid of all the immigrants. Anyone who was not born in this country is now gone. Now you get rid of the children of those immigrants. So that would be me. I'm the first generation born in this country. My dad was not born here, my mum was not born here. I am first born here. So then they come for me. Then they just are blacks, Asians, whatever. Then they get rid of all of that and you've got a homogenous, white, Anglo-Saxon descended society. Well, then they say, well, who's gay? Then you got to get them out. And all it is various methods of exclusion, so that, again, because some people don't want everyone to win, I must win. And all that happens is you shrink your pool smaller and smaller because you've got rid of them, and then eventually you have to turn on yourself. There's no one left to turn to, because the hatred, what you thought was a hatred for all these other people, it wasn't. It was something burning inside of yourself that you never addressed. You never just opened it up and tipped it all out and looked at it and kicked through the rubbish and picked up the good bits and threw away the bad bits and tried to repackage it back. You did none of that. You did no self-exploration. You didn't learn anything about yourself. You just kept pointing the finger. And then you pointed the finger so much, you're the only one left, bro. You're the only one left. It's the only outcome. It eats itself. It fully eats itself. And I just hope that these young ones coming up and the more, like, I know I have a following on Twitter. One of the reasons that I speak more about social issues than I do about battle rap And one of the reasons for that is because I know I have a platform. And I know there are people who look at me and people who listen to me. And they value my opinion just because of who I am. And where I may not, I don't agree with that at all. Yeah, I don't like, oh, he's Tony D the rapper, he must be right. No. That's not how this works. No. If I say something you agree with, fine. If you disagree with me and you're 100% in your convictions, you don't have to, oh, because I said it, you ain't got to jump on board. You might have a point I never thought of. Come and let me know, maybe you change my mind. You know? But because I know there are people who look and people who follow, I say these things to let, first of all, I couldn't think of anything worse than not being able to be you, not being able to be yourself. So if you're a young gay man, and like you're just scared to go out and you're wondering what do the rest of society what do they think of me, and rare in my own home I'm not welcome. You know that if you see me on the street, I ain't gonna treat you no differently, bro. Not on the basis of your sexuality. That's not where we at. And it's important that you know there are people like that. I go to Tottenham socials sometimes to watch the games, right? And there'd be 300 Tottenham fans just watching it. And one a kid came up to me, like 21, and he was like, bro, you helped me so much, man. Like, there was a lot of other people that helped me, and I came out to my parents, but it was people like yourself that just made it easier. And you see something like that, for someone to say that, like, so how easy is it for me to twiddle my thumbs and send something out into the ether and put my phone down and never think about it again? But he read that and it impacted his life, and it made a positive impact. Like, and it didn't take anything from me. I didn't even think about it. So this where I am, I know what my duty is. I know what my responsibilities are. I know I have a platform. I know I reach people. So why not reach them with a positive message? Why not just let's bring everybody up, man. So I do believe that we will get there. We will eventually, and it will happen because people such as yourself with platforms like this who entertain these conversations of me sitting here waffling for an hour and a half. Do you know what I mean? Like, just that simple fact. There might be one sentence that we've said today that's really going to strike a chord with someone, and they're going to be, right, you just changed my whole view. And then they feel better about certain things. And then it makes it, like, that's all we can hope for, man. And I think that's the end of the whole, my message is hope. I do have hope that things will get better, man.
And I hope you're right. My sentiment mirrors that, and I'll end my side on this, because it's one of the, I watched this segment a lot. I saw this segment quite a long time ago, but I rewatch it occasionally to remind myself that even in the most diametrically opposed of viewpoints, a consensus can be formed. Are you familiar with the Jon Stewart, the comedian in America, who
Yes.
Daily Show and all the rest of it? He does a new show now. He occasionally would make a foray into Fox News. And for those of you not familiar with Fox News, they're a right-wing news media organization. Some would argue they're a political organization, but they would argue differently. One time he was invited on to discuss a situation concerning Common, where he'd been invited to the White House as a guest of Barack Obama. And Fox News had a problem with this, because not long before that, he had gone to Cuba to visit someone in prison who was accused of... Right. And Fox News went apoplectic about this. You can't invite this man to the White House. He's supporting a cop killer. Jon Stewart went on there to address that because he'd made fun of their inconsistencies and their hatred, i.e. the hypocrisy that they had displayed. And the reason he went on there was because he was adequately prepared to highlight this by saying, right, you're mad at Common for being invited because of this reason. You know Bono was invited and he did the same thing. Bob Dylan was invited and he did the same thing. What's different about those two to Common that makes you angry at Common but not these two? It's because he fits your narrative. Now, the reason I flagged this is because Stewart didn't go on there to make him look better or superior. He didn't go on there to denounce the evils of Fox News. He went on there to say, listen, if you want to make the argument you're making, that's fine. We can have the argument that people who aren't that can be discredited from visiting places of power because of the influence that would extol. But you have to be consistent. That is the only metric. Be consistent. And he didn't do it vitriolically. He didn't do it in a way that was accusatory. He did it in a way that said, look, come with me here. We can be on the same side and united by something better than hatred. Because if we're united by hatred, we're united by something incredibly fragile. Like you've said, we're only united so long as we have a common enemy. But if we have a common goal, we'll be united forever, man. Like, it feels like, again, that's very simple. So if anyone ever wants to see what I believe true discourse should be, which is even in the situation where someone is ardently opposed to someone else's opinion, that is a very good example of two people coming together, having a discussion, disagreeing but conceding points, and ultimately reaching a good consensus, which is consistency. That was the summation of their discussion. He didn't go on there and say, you're racists. He didn't fire back by saying, well, you don't understand how we feel as real Americans and all that bollocks. It was a good discussion. So I agree. The hope, hopefully, is that either part of this generation or the generation to come are wise to a lot of this stuff, and they'll see through it, and they'll be able to navigate the waters with more empathy and hopefully a degree of optimism that we are not currently able to share based on our experience. But experience teaches you what not to do a lot of the times, and their exuberance and youth hopefully will not have a lot of what not to do, but they'll have what to do laid out for them, and it's just up to them to walk the path. But we'll see.
We shall see.
Tony D, that might be one of the most profound conversations I've ever had with another human being.
Oh, man, I appreciate that, bro. It was a great convo, man.
I feel
a genuine great convo.
Really sad that I was on the dumber end of it. I was really thinking that one day I would have hair down to here, silver with a beard to match, and I'd be pontificating this to someone else, and yet I am the student learning from the teacher.
Man. I was just like, I just talk, bro. I just like, you know what? It's not that I think that I'm right or I just talk. This is how I see it, man. I don't expect you to agree with me. Do you know? I just
call it waffle. I call it wisdom. That's all I would say to you there.
I appreciate you, my man. My man.
Well, I'll give you an opportunity to say, whatever it is in summation that you want to say as far as the conversation. But I just want to say, first and foremost, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you for delving into something that can be quite sensitive for a lot of people. You put a lot of yourself into the conversation as far as your own personal stake in the situation, and then you approached a lot of this stuff with a humility that I think other people would struggle to balance. You don't want to be blowing smoke. You don't want to be on a pedestal saying, yeah, everybody with me, when it's like, well, okay, you first then. Well, yeah, but everyone first. Like, no. You're practicing what you preach, and I appreciate that you embody a lot of what you're preaching here. And I'm so glad that you took the time to have this conversation, because I do believe there are people that are going to see this that are going to take something away from the positivity and the wisdom that you've exhibited versus someone like me who can be quite negative and a bit bleak when it comes to my outlook on things. So I appreciate you bringing levity and hope to this conversation more than anything else.
I appreciate you having me, bro. I fully appreciate you having me on, man. Like, we could do this a million times. This is why I have these conversations weekly. Just go to my brethren's house and we just have these conversations. So it's not thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity to have a little platform and to, you don't get much out in a tweet. Do you know what I mean? 240 characters and that. And so it's kind of an opportunity just for me to extend my thought process and my thinking. And yeah, I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much, bro.
It was wonderful listening to you. And yeah, I just can't say thank you enough, man.
Great stuff, man. Great stuff. I hope they like it.